Hello, friends. My name is Elle, and this is David, and you are joining us for another deep dive for Grow Students, Volume 5. This time, we are talking about our Easter series from Volume 5, which is called Break Trail. What we're going to do in this video is we're going to give you like a big picture overview of what the series is all about. But then we're also going to give you a couple really specific little tips to help you make the most of all of the good stuff that we are giving you in the curriculum. David, tell us the plan.
Yes. So if you are a Grow user, this is a perfect time for you to take some notes, prepare for your series if you've got this one coming up on your plate. We're going to get some great stuff for you. And if you're not a Grow user, no worries. Feel free to peek in, spy in on our conversation, listen to some tips or tricks that you can take back for your ministry. Just feel free to listen in. If you're a Grow user, not Grow user, welcome everyone here to this deep dive. But here's how the deep dive is going to work. So first, we're going to give you an overview of the series. So just kind of talk about like how the series works and all that good stuff. Then we're gonna look at the theme, so how to like make the series even just more so than just the teaching. Then we'll look at structure, and then we'll finally give you guys some tips to make this the best series that you could possibly ever teach in your ministry. All right, here's the overview for our series Break Trail. First off, it was written by some very good friends of ours, Heather Kennison, who shout out is the moderator and leader of Women in Youth Ministry. If you don't know that and you are a woman in youth ministry, feel free to check that out. So go to our Facebook group and you can join that. And then also it was co-written by our project manager, Steven Switzer. He's a fantastic and wonderful writer, author, and person. So this is a great series written from some great people. So it is a 6 weeks series on Jesus and Easter. So we're kind of combining both topics of talk about Jesus, talk about Easter. Pretty inevitable to talk about both of them at the same time. It also has a hiking theme, so like an outdoorsy hiking kind of theme. And so we'll talk more a little bit about that, how that's incorporated into the series. But essentially, break trail is this phrase that people will use when typically you're hiking in snow and either the leader or someone goes first and breaks trail and they're the first one that goes on the trail. They kind of blaze the trail and setting the footprints when they're hiking through the snow. That's kind of like a little explanation of what the series title is about. And now Elle's going to talk to us about why 6 weeks and how we can incorporate it into our ministries. Elle?
Yes. And David, I feel like you're really downplaying your excitement about hiking in general because I think this is one of your favorite things in the
I
world.
do like to
So
go hiking. That's
you
true.
do. You are a fan. But yeah, let's talk about why the series is a 6 weeker. We're gonna get a little technical. If you're not using Grow, and this is all brand new to you, you're probably gonna be like, I have no idea what you're talking about, and that's fine. Listen in. If you are using Grow, this will make sense to you, hopefully. So at the beginning of the year when you plan out your year, all of our series for the most part are 4 weekers. And so what we do is we'll say like, hey, you've got 52 weeks in a year. We're going to give you 50 weeks of content to put on your calendar because you're probably going to take 1 or 2 weeks off during the year. So we give you all this stuff. Most of them are 4 week series, but Easter is like the weird one, right? Because it's not like a calendar month. It's not like always in March or always in April. It kind of like floats around on the calendar. So the way we typically do it is usually Easter is just this little standalone 2 week series where you can kind of like put it wherever you need to based on when Easter is that year. But once in a while, we were trying to do the math on this a second ago. We think it's either going to be once every 5 years based on leap years. Guys, it's so technical and annoying. But once in a while, Easter is just not going to land nicely on the calendar. It's going to be like you'd have to do like 2 weeks on something and then put Easter in the middle and then 2 weeks on something else. So, in the rare event when that happens on the calendar, we just combine it into like one mega series that is 6 weeks long. Typically, what we'll do is it'll be like a Jesus and Easter series because Easter is all about Jesus. There's a lot of Jesus related content that you probably want to teach your students. So this is one of those times. You can think about it as just a 6 week long Easter or 6 week long Jesus series because it's all about how Jesus kind of is like the trailblazer for us. And Easter falls within that. So I feel like that's the easiest way to think about it. If 6 weeks is too long for you and like it doesn't fit on your calendar, the easiest thing to do is just cut out the weeks that you don't need. You might not even need like an Easter Sunday week because maybe you're not meeting, or even a Good Friday week if you need to cut that out. Whatever you need to cut out, do what you want. But that's how that works. Did that make sense, David?
It did. It did.
Great.
And essentially, it kind of all boils down to Just make it fit your ministry, kind of
Yes.
play with it. We'll talk about the stories here in a second, and kind of how it figures out, so you can either like cut out some stories or you can add some stories in there as well. Essentially, just make it your own, make it fit to your
Mhm.
ministry. How's that sound?
Yeah, that's great. Just look at your calendar, figure out when Easter Sunday is, and then place this on your calendar in a way that makes sense with Easter Sunday. How
Yes,
about that?
that's
Great.
perfect. That's perfect. So let's talk about the stories that we're going to talk about. That sound good?
Great.
Cool. All right. So for week one, we are going to start off with the betrayal of Judas and Peter. So starting off a little bit heavy, but just kind of like is the start of the Easter series and the start of the Easter week and kind of the start of the Easter story with Jesus. And so this is a good time just to kind of remind your students of like, hey, look, some of Jesus's closest friends betrayed Jesus and hurt Jesus. And eventually we'll kind of see and we'll kind of talk about how Jesus redeemed and restored Peter, and a little bit like Judas. It's a little touchy with Judas a little bit, but we'll talk about a tip with that in a little bit. But essentially, the big idea for week one is Jesus never gives up on us in the same way as Jesus never gave up on Peter and Judas.
That's right. And then weeks 2 and 3 are also going to be pretty heavy weeks because these are leading up to Easter Sunday. So, week 2, what we're going to do is we're going to focus on just like the way that Jesus suffered before he was actually crucified. So, there was a lot that Jesus went through at that time, both like physical pain, but also like psychological pain of being mocked, of being judged, of being betrayed, all of that stuff. So, we're going to talk about that. And we're the big idea for this week is specifically Jesus understands our pain, because what we want to do with this week is focus just on the fact that Jesus suffered, but then also kind of make that personal of like, hey, if you're going through some hard stuff too, like Jesus knows what that's like. So that's really the focus of this week is that Jesus understands our pain.
Yes. And then in week three, we go right up to the crucifixion, right up when Jesus was on the cross, and we actually get to hear some of the words that Jesus talks to the criminal on the cross next to him. And it's just a really interesting conversation, really beautiful how Jesus talks to him and the language that Jesus uses, that Jesus is in so much pain that even in this moment that Jesus shows love. And even no matter the past that this criminal had in the history of the criminal, Jesus just continues to show that love. And so when we apply that to students, it's and to all of us really. I mean, we've done a lot of things to hurt other people, to break God's hearts. And so in this week, the big idea is that Jesus shows us love.
And again, throughout all of these weeks, we're really leaning on this metaphor of like that Jesus is a trailblazer for us. And so, all of these things, all of these truths that we're bringing out are things that like Jesus did so that we can follow in his lead. Week 4, though, this is Easter Sunday. So, this is like, this is it. So, if you're putting this on your calendar, try to line this up with Easter Sunday as best you can. What we're doing in this week is we're talking about, of course, the resurrection. The big idea is that Jesus is alive, and the idea of Jesus breaking trail, of being a trailblazer for us, is that because Jesus lives, so can we.
Yes. And then in week five, we're almost there, getting 2 more weeks left. In week five, we turn our attention to the disciples. So we talk about it's a Jesus series, but we also need to include about the disciples as well, especially post resurrection, because there's a lot of cool things that happen there and a lot of great stories to talk about. And so this one, we're specifically focusing on Thomas. And, we might know him as Doubting Thomas, and just because he wasn't there with the disciples when they heard about the news about the resurrection. And so this one, we're just talking about doubt, a lot about like fear and anxiety and worry and all that sort of stuff. Just a lot of these feelings that these disciples felt after Jesus was crucified. They didn't know what was going to happen. They didn't know if the Romans were going to come after them. So a lot of unknown with the disciples. And so this one, the big idea that we want our students to learn from is that Jesus can be trusted, so that even in our doubts, our worries, our anxieties, that we can trust Jesus in those times.
And then the last week, week 6, I'm excited about this one because we're actually going to kind of bounce back and reference some of the things that we talked about in week 1 of the series when Peter betrayed Jesus. Because what happens here in week 6, chronologically in the story, is that Jesus restores Peter and gives him another chance. So just like Peter denied Jesus 3 times, Jesus asks Peter 3 times, like, "Are you in, man?" And he's like, "Yes, I'm in." And so this whole week is about Jesus restoring Peter, and specifically giving a mission, not just to Peter, but to all of Jesus' followers. So, the big idea for this week is, and to wrap up the whole series, is that Jesus gives us a mission. And again, we're talking break trail. So, this whole mission that we are on is us following Jesus' leadership, following Jesus' footsteps. And that's it. That's how break trail ends.
Yes. And so, just really quick to just summarize real fast, just make this your own series. Feel free to combine stories, take out stories. We give you even more scripture than just the scripture we just talked about as well. So the scriptures we talked about are just the primary scriptures, but there's also supplementary scriptures as well that you can talk about as you teach your students from just the different epistles. We might have a psalm in there as well. But yeah, just definitely make this series your own, adjust it to your calendar, and feel free to do what you need to do for the series. But here's one more time the big ideas, just so you can get them fresh in your mind and just make sure you can start thinking about what you might do for each week. So they are: Jesus never gives up on us, Jesus understands our pain, Jesus shows us love, Jesus is alive, Jesus can be trusted, and Jesus gives us a mission.
All right, so that is the overview for the series. Now let's talk about the theme of the series. If you are not familiar with Grow, or maybe you are, but you're kind of still getting your footing here, what we do is for every single series, we try to create like a visual theme around it. We do that with graphics, we do that with room design, we do that with like fun games and music choices, all that stuff. Because we want to like make this memorable for students, you know, like these kind of abstract big ideas are awesome, but unless there are kind of like some concrete metaphors and visuals that help students really like remember them, it's easy for these ideas to just float away out of their brains. So, David, we've already said that this has like a hiking theme. We've talked about this breaking trail metaphor, but give us some more specifics. How are we theming this series?
Yes, I'm excited about it. But let's start with the room design. So, like as Elle was saying, we provide you a room design. There's a picture in there. It'll show up here on the graphic. But essentially, what we want you guys to do for this one is you get your backdrop. As you probably know by now, we have a backdrop set up for you for every single series. But this one, you can either do like wood pallets, so like actually get like pallets of wood, or you can get like some foam covers, like we kind of typically do for a series. If it's kind of like our standard like kind of go to, you can get foam panels and then do some like wallpaper that looks like wood panels. So it's a little bit more easier instead of trying to find the wood panels and trying to paint on top of the wood panels. That's an easier option too. But essentially, once you figure out what you want to do with your backdrop, you get the series graphic on there, which is super cool, by the way. You should definitely try to figure out how to like get the series graphic on the backdrop, whether you print it, you draw it, you stencil it, you project it, and then you paint it in there, or however creative way. You can even just put it on your screens, like it's while you teach, you can do that as well. But here's where you really can kind of make your room design come alive. And that's with kind of like these little extra little added objects that you can do. So you can do hiking theme props. So you can do like borrow a tent and have it set up on your stage. You get some hiking shoes, some walking poles. Also, if you have some like Christmas trees like hanging around from your church, you can just set up like Christmas trees up there without like lights on them, just to make it kind of look outdoorsy, kind of like very hiking theme, all that sort of thing. Like Elle was saying, this is break trail hiking theme. Just go all out. If you don't have any of those things, feel free to like contact Boy Scouts possibly. Maybe some of your students are into hiking, so you can ask them. I'm sure some of your volunteers or adults, even someone in the church has some sort of gear like this. Or at worst, go to your REI and rent some gear, and you can do that as well. So do that, and we'd love to see any pictures that you do with your hiking gear and all that sort of stuff in your room design. So that's the room design, just to kind of make it look alive, three-dimensional for students. That's fantastic. Yeah, so that's that for the room
Love
design.
it. Can they just call you and borrow all of your hiking gear,
Sure,
David?
call me. I'm in Dallas. You can come and find me, and yeah, I'd love to loan you some hiking stuff as long as you let me come to see you preach for your youth group.
Maybe that could be kind of like a situation where like you are actually on stage the whole time, just like sitting, like roasting marshmallows over a
Oh,
campfire
some
or something.
s'mores. Yes.
Oh, cool. A living prop. That could be you, David.
Definitely.
People
I'm
could
all
rent
for
you
it.
for Okay, great. Perfect. Amazing. Okay, so that's great. That's a lot, but of course we give you the instructions for that. We also give you some instructions for some more things. What else do the people get, David, besides room design?
Yes. So you also get games and you also get playlists as well. So the games are actually like added beyond the teaching. So we do have some games in there for you, but there's also some like extra games that we have for you. They're all kind of like play off of hiking adventure themed things like that. We also have some playlists as well. They're all very Easter themed. And we also have songs that are like non-worship songs, but also have some like Easter messages in there that you can also play for like walk-in or playing during your games or exit songs. But just another way to make your series just come alive with the theme and just kind of make it connect more with students, just in different ways, because it's more than just teaching. It's visual, hearing, all different kinds of ways as well. So yeah.
Next next up, let's talk about the structure of this series. As you may or may not know, Grow has a similar structure for every single week of our curriculum, but not an identical structure because that would be very boring. Your students need some variety so that they don't fall asleep in the middle of your teaching. But there are some things that are similar that are kind of like the same structure. And the things that are always the same are the three sections that our teaching is divided into. And so that is, first of all, the what section. So that is where you're kind of doing some fun intro of like, okay, what are we talking about today? Easing students into the topic, kind of like earning their attention, all that good stuff. Then we go into so what. So that is like basically answering the question, why does this topic matter? Why are we talking about this? Why does it matter to God? Why should it matter to me? And this is the section where we really unpack all of the Bible teaching. And then the final section is the now what section, which is where we answer the question, what am I supposed to do with this information that you have just given me? How do I apply it? How does this relate to my life? What am I supposed to do? And so that's really the application section. So that's always the same inside of Grow every single week, but there is a ton that is always different. And we try to kind of keep things like somewhat cohesive within a series. So maybe some series like always have like a recurring game at the beginning or like something just to kind of tie it all together. So David, tell us what is like unique about the series, what ties it all together in the structure.
Yes. And so, like I was saying, in the what section, it's kind of like more your fun section, kind of like broad ideas, trying to introduce the topic. And so, for this series, what makes this one unique is that in the what section, all of our modules are adventure themed. So this is like we sound like a broken record. This is all like hiking theme, adventure theme. So
Well,
we're
that
asking.
means we did a great job with the themes. Like,
Exactly, exactly. We've created a nice, very concrete thread in all different aspects within the series. So this makes a great series. So I think your students will definitely get excited about hiking afterwards. So maybe you need to take them for a hike. Actually, one of the responses is to go on a hike afterwards. So feel free to do that. That's also something that makes us unique. And I don't think any of our series asks students to go take a hike. So this one definitely includes that. But this one, what section? All of them are adventure themed. So we have questions like, what are some trailblazers you know? Something about first aid, is anyone a hiker? We ask students if anyone hikes. But this one's my favorite. It's in week 6, and it's build your own trail mix bar. And so definitely like you can have like a whole like build your own trail mix and have that for students as they like come in to the space and just kind of get them in the mood of like the hiking adventure, how Jesus breaks trail for us and is the first one to go through all these things. And so yeah, that's definitely a really cool thing about this series. It makes it very unique. And then the second one, it's a little off the hiking theme, but like I said, we give you guys playlists in the overview PDF, but within this actual sermons, we give you guys specific songs to play for your weeks. And so, like, if you have some time at the end of your service, you can play these songs or play these at the beginning, but they just really tie into each specific week just with the songs that we picked. And I think for the week of this Easter, we give you guys a larger selection of songs that you guys can pick for Easter because we know that Easter and music are just hand in hand, and it's a really good time and a lot of celebration, a lot of singing when it comes to Easter. So we give you guys some recommendations, but of course you can use your own, use the other playlist, use other playlists, but we definitely give you some that's tied specifically to the series that we have written. So these are some of the things that make it unique, and I think it's pretty awesome. I think they're pretty great.
Me too. So now that we've kind of covered all of the big picture stuff, let us leave you with just a few specific tips to make this even more awesome.
All right, here's some tips, some added bonus tips for you to make the series just above and beyond while you teach this. And so the first tip is in as many weeks as you'd like, add some younger people to the examples of modern day trailblazers. So what I mean by this is that there's a couple of modules where we talk about trailblazers just because we open up with the idea, talk about trailblazers, and eventually point to Jesus, that Jesus is the ultimate trailblazer. Um, but in your instance and for your context, feel free to pick some trailblazers that are more relevant for your students. So, for instance, I know sometimes TikTok can be a little bit iffy, but if you know some TikTok influencers or even Instagram influencers that your students just absolutely love and you feel like it's appropriate to mention them, that would be a great way to just kind of make the series a lot more relevant. You earn a little bit more credibility with your students by knowing someone that's a little bit more their age, possibly even. So, yeah, just talk about some modern day trailblazers that your students can relate to. And I think that just be a really cool way for your students to connect with that sermon just a little bit more.
Tip number 2, this is a heavier one. In week 1, we're talking about Judas as well as Peter betraying Jesus. And if you're familiar with the story of Judas, you know that it ends actually with Judas committing suicide. That is a very, very touchy subject, especially if you've got students who know somebody who has experienced that, who is struggling with that right now, or students in your ministry who are having thoughts about suicide. So before you go into this series, please, 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 please brush up on what the resources are that are available to you in your community, in your kids' schools, in your church. Be really aware of what might be triggered by even just mentioning and bringing up how Judas's story ends. You may have students who need somebody to talk to at the end of that, at the end of your teaching. If you bring that up, it might come up in small group time. And teenagers are teenagers. They don't always know how to handle this subject like compassionately or discreetly. And you might have kids who are kind of flippant about it, whereas you have other students in your ministry who are really, really struggling with this. So please be aware of that. Handle this in the way that makes the most sense for you and your students. But we wanted to make sure you had that heads up so that you can do the work that you need to do to be fully prepared, prepare your leaders, and prepare any of your students for that conversation as well.
Yes, definitely a very important tip for you youth pastors as you're teaching this and walking along students that are possibly dealing with this. So next tip for you guys is use the spring discipleship activity, the Break Trail Experience. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, go back to our last deep dive. We talked about the Break Trail Experience in more detail, but essentially it is a Stations of a Cross event that goes alongside this sermon series perfectly and super great. Essentially, it's a very unique experience for students to experience God in different ways and creative ways and unique ways that they might not normally do it themselves. But you can do it as a youth group meeting night or as an extra meeting time, or you can even break it down to like do a station a week or something like that. You can get creative about this, whatever best fits your ministry. But definitely use this alongside of this series because it just fits perfectly along with the Lenten season and all that good stuff.
And final tip is if you would like to, you can actually use this as an opportunity to get more aligned in your teaching with both kids and adults. So if you are using Grow beyond just your youth ministry, within kids ministry, we are, of course, doing an Easter series for kids as well. It's a series called Did You Know? It's a really fun, like trivia themed Easter series. And it doesn't align perfectly because kids is on a bit of a different scope and sequence. But we're talking about Easter. So, there's a lot of alignment there. And then also on the adult side, we have Grow Groups, which is an adult small group curriculum. And the series over there is called For You. And this series is more closely aligned with Break Trail. Basically, what we did for this series is we took our just 4 weeks from Break Trail and then adapted it to adult small group ministry. So 4 of the 6 weeks will apply to your adult small groups. So check that out. If you have any questions or like you want to try a free sample, please feel free to reach out to our team. You can get a free trial on our website, all that stuff. And friends, that's it. David, I think we covered it all, right?
6 weeks.
Did it?
Look at that.
6 weeks. Man, what a time. What a time. Well, friends, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive. We will see you next time for our next deep dive next month for the next series. In the meantime, please hang out with us in our Facebook group, which you can find by searching for Stuff You Can Use, a youth ministry community. Share your pictures, share your stories, share your videos, share your great ideas of how you've made the series your own, made it more awesome. You can tag us on Instagram. We like to repost pictures and all of that good stuff as well. And that's it. That's all we got. David, any last words?
I think I'm good. I'm excited for you guys to see the series come to life. Just Easter is a great time. Easter's fantastic. Can't wait to hear what and how God moves through you as you teach this sermon series.
And don't forget to invite David for your trail mix bar.
Exactly.
All right, friends. See you later. Bye.
Bye.